Okay, welcome back. So this is review 7, your cumulative review for lessons 28 through 31, with a heavy focus on percents, fractions, and decimals. So I remind you that for this segment we are allowed to use a calculator, and there will be a lot of financial applications, so that's why we're going to use the calculator. This is a review. 15 questions. Once you've successfully completed this review with me, think of this as our rehearsal together, and then you can do the self-assessment on iTunes on your own. Okay, let's dive right in. Number 1, in a recent year, the U.S. Postal Service handled approximately 0.435 of the world's card and letter mail volume. Write this decimal as a percent. So you're hopefully recalling from our guided notes that to convert from decimal to percent, we simply slide the decimal 2 units right. Okay, so I was just kind of making a little note there. All right, so is it as easy as sliding this decimal here 1, 2 to the right? Yep. And then we will have 43.5%. So obviously we have the answer snipped here, but I'm just really trying to remind you of the rules. Some people say to move from decimal to percent you multiply by 100, which in essence slides the decimal 2 units to the right. So okay, hope that helps. Let's head to the next one. Now remember, I'm assuming you've been through all the guided notes, and with this we're going to cruise through a little more speedily. So solve what percent of 152 is 45.6. So some of us prefer to solve these problems using the is over of equals percent out of 100 method, as you saw in the guided notes. If we do that way, is a 45.6, 152 is the of. Some people think of it as part to whole equals percent out of 100. You could also use that proportion. What percent? Okay, percent's unknown, over 100. And then from there, you can simply cross multiply and solve. So if you're a student in my live class, we will be allowed to use our calculators on this exam. So, but 45.6 times 100 is 4560, and 152 times x is just 152x. And so what I mean by the whole calculator business is we've been through decimal division and so on and so forth, so we'll use the calculator to do the sort of the heavy lifting for us there at the end. So we'll take the 4560 and divide it by the 152, 30, and voila, x equals 30. But then you have to remind yourself, you know, what you were looking for. 30 what? 30%. What percent? 30%. So don't forget to put the percent. Okay, hope that helps. And I always say, think about money. If I say what percent of $152 is $45.60, even if you think about money, it makes sense, right? Because it has to be less than, whatever the answer is, it has to be intuitively less than 50%. Because $45 is definitely less than 50% of 152. So your answer should make sense. Okay, let's head to the next one. What number is 60% of 145? Well, this one, just to spice it up here, I'm going to try translation method, just translating left to right. What number, that means x, is means equals. See, is means equals. What number is x? 60%, you know, written as a decimal is 0.60. Of means multiply. 145. So if I'm just doing basic translation method, then I'm just taking 0.60 times 145. That should be fairly easy. 0.60 times 145. 87. And voila. we have the answer. Okay? And if you think about it, if you say, what's 60% of $145? $87 makes sense, because more than 50%. All right. With this one, we have to write the percent as a decimal. So if in your mind, if you're thinking move the decimal 2 units left, you should be thinking that. So that's our general rule, to go from percent to decimal. So, but you might be thinking, well, where is the decimal? Well, when you say 600%, you really mean 600.0%, right? So if we move that decimal 2 units to the left, 1, 2, we're going to land right here, 6.0. Well, 6.0 means the same thing as 6. Okay? So, so we do arrive at 6. And if you think about it, if I say I want 100% of your money, that means all of your money. If I want 200% of your money, that's double. If I want 600% of your money, that means I want 6 times the amount. 6 times the amount that you have. Okay? So this chapter, this segment and this post is a lot about money applications, really, as we'll see in a moment. Write the fraction as a percent. FDP. In my opinion, it's easy to go from fraction to decimal to percent in that motion. So, you know, if I was going to do it by hand, I would divide the bottom into the top, but since we're allowed to use a calculator, I'm just going to hit 11 divided by 16. So I got my decimal, 0.6875. And then, let me just write that. And then now I got to move to percent. Well, then I just got to slide the decimal 2 units to the right, and voila, I'll have 68.75%. So I always keep that kind of FDP conversion thing in mind, moving from fraction to decimal to percent. And voila, we have it as a percent. And again, if you think about it, it makes sense. If 11 out of 16 people like the movie, that's a majority. That's more than 50%. Okay. Write the percent as a decimal and as a fraction. Well, 67% of 7th grade students recently reported they use a computer at home in a public school. As a decimal, that's 0.67. And as a fraction, well, if you think about place value, tenths, hundredths, that's 67 out of 100. So again, reminding when we go from percent to decimal, we slide, 2 units to the left, and then it's easy to get from decimal to percent because you can use place value. Tenths, hundredths, 67 out of 100. Okay, let's head to the next one. Find the amount of discount and the sale price. All right. Well, discount rate times your price will get you the amount of discount. Now I'm assuming you've been through this in all the guided notes, so I'm going to cruise through with ease. So 0.10 times 104.5. So my amount of discount, I'm just going to fill that in, is $10.45. And then my sale price, and I'll just make a little note here, sale price is your original minus your amount of discount. Okay. So if we take the 104.5 and minus the 10.45, we got $94.05 for our sale price. And obviously we have the answer pasted over there. Okay, so hope that helps. Now let's head into number 8. A salesperson earned a commission of this much money, a little over $1,000, for selling $8,740 worth of paper products. Find the commission rate. Keyword rate. Rate is like a percent, so whenever you're looking for the missing percent, you might want to just think part to whole. You can always use this proportion. Equals percent out of 100. So, you know, it's like, what's the part and what's the whole? Well, the part is the amount of commission that you earned, and the whole is the total sales. And the percent is unknown, or the rate is unknown, and voila, we know what to do now. We're going to cross multiply and solve. So 8740x, that's this way, equals, I'm going to let the calculator do the lifting for us there, but, well, you know that this times 100 is just going to move the decimal 2 to the right, so 104,880. And now we know we're going to divide both sides by 8740 to solve for x. But we can let the calculator do that for us. So 104,880 divided by 8740, 12. And voila, x equals 12. And so 12 is that commission rate, or that commission percent. Okay? All right, moving right along, let's head into number 9. Find the simple interest. I always look for the command and the keywords. Boom! As soon as I hear simple interest, I'm grabbing I equals PRT. Principal times rate times time. I know the principal, I know the rate, I know the time, but uh-oh, uh-oh. Time has to be in years, so don't get tricked. 24 months is 2 years. So note to self, must be in years. Okay, so now we're ready to fill in the blanks. So then we know interest is our principal times our rate. Now I'm going to write that rate as a decimal, 0.155. And then times time, which has to be in years. So that's where people get caught up. They sometimes accidentally forget time is in years, and sometimes students make decimal errors there. As long as you don't do any of those common pitfalls, you'll be fine. So let's go ahead and key that in. So 2800 times 0.155 times 2, 868. So the simple interest is 868 bucks. All right, moving right along. Another percent problem. 120% of 410. Let's translate. So 120% written as a decimal is 1.2. Of means multiply. Is means equals what number? So all I have to do then is take 1.2 times 410. Let me just clear out the whole thing. 1.2 times 410. 492. And voila, we got the answer. Okay, so I like to do translation method when I do those kinds of problems. Again, some people use that whole is over of equals percent out of 100 proportion, but you choose. Okay, number 11, write the percent as a fraction or a mixed number in simplest form. Well, 2% by definition means 2 out of 100. By definition of a percent, right? 2%, 2 per 100, 2 out of 100. But then you must reduce. Well, that's going to reduce into 1 out of 50. And that's how we get the answer. Okay, let's try the next one. you have a food fact here. It says, find what percent of total calories is from fat. Well, calories from fat is 30. So let's just first start with the ratio, or the fraction. And total calories is 150. But again, you want to take that fraction and convert it to a percent. So remember that you like to travel through decimal land first, at least I do. So, so let's take 30 out of 150, get a decimal, which is 0.2. So I'm just going to write the decimal here is 0.2. And then to convert that to a percent, that's obviously 20%. Okay, slide 2 to the right, 20%. So again, reminding you that when you go from fraction to percent, you might want to travel to decimal first, and then eventually to percent. Okay? Hope that helps. Let's head to number 13. Write this decimal as a percent, just reminding that we slide 2 to the right. I feel like we can never have enough practice with that. That's going to be 1.8%. And then number 15 is very important, which is a compound interest problem. So as soon as I hear the words compound interest, I've got to grab my formula. Future value equals original amount, or principal. I'm just going to write A for original amount. 1 plus R over N to the NT, where N is the compounding period. Well, if you're compounding the interest annually, N is 1. I remind you, if it would have said semi-annually, N would have been 2. But all right, so let's fill in the blanks. So A is your original amount. So you have 2,675 is your original amount. And then 1 plus, sorry, my pen slipped there. It's just a parenthesis. 1 plus your rate, which is written as a decimal, so 0.11, over your compounding period, which is just 1. And then T should be in years, so we're just doing 1 year. So it's really this F for future value. So it's really this question of how much is going to be in there after a year. Now, from the guided notes, you recall that, and let me just fill in the blanks here. So A for original amount, R for rate, just kind of making notes to self, and N for compounding period, which is annually. Okay, the big thing is, how are you going to type this into the calculator? Well, luckily there's small numbers here, so it won't be hard. But I always say do order of ops. So let's go in the parentheses first. So 0.11 divided by 1 is just 0.11. Then plus 1 is, so I've got 1.11. And then raise to, up caret, well, 1 times 1 is 1, so I'm only raising it to the first power. And then eventually multiplying it by the 2,675. So order of ops, and we arrive at 2,969 and 25 cents. Which we know is the answer. But the big thing is applying this formula, all right? So A for original amount, borrowed or invested, R for rate, N for compounding period. Hope that helps. Let's see, is that our last slide? Yep, that was our last problem for that practice set. Now you're ready to move on to your own personal self-assessment. Good luck out there.